Brought to you on UK Health Radio, The Natural Beauty Show. An in-depth look at the beauty issues that affect you. Women and beauty go hand in hand. We generally love beauty products, love the ritual of beauty regimes, and enjoy making ourselves up. We also have a good grasp of the types of products we desire, what would improve our bodies, as well as the causes behind our brand choices, be that vegan, conscious, cruelty-free, natural, menopause-friendly, to name a few. There are many notable female brand founders who have been driven to create a product based upon their own desire to fill a gap in the market. The reason for creating their brands and the products is always driven by an aspiration to provide for a segment of the marketplace that share their need. But in the corporate world of beauty, motivation to gain greater profits can override the very reason why a beauty brand was formed, and often only the strongest female founder can stay firm to their mission. As increasing numbers of consumers are taking more time to consider not only the product but the brand and the cause behind it, today's show will give you a chance to learn about 4 brands that have remained firm to their roots. As always, remember to use our Twitter page @NatElliottLife to comment on any of the points raised in today's show. Now let's start with a brand that's a familiar scent on the British High Street, Lush. Joining me now is Rowena Bird, co-founder of Lush. Lovely to have you with us today, Rowena. Thank you for giving us some time.
No, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for asking us.
Let's start to talk a bit more about women in the industry. You know, I'm really aware of the responsibilities I have as a female coming into this industry. I also have daughters, and, you know, I do feel a humongous responsibility to how I present my brand, what it is I want to achieve with it, and the responsibility that then falls on my shoulders. How do you feel about that? I mean, you're an iconic woman within the industry. I often talk a lot about Anita Roddick and a lot of the changes she made when she set up Body Shop to our whole mentality against testing on animals. Do you think a beauty brand is just a company if you're a female founder, or do you think there's a lot more opportunity to achieve much more than this?
Oh no, there's huge opportunity. I mean, I've never really thought of myself as a female founder, but I think we're being forced to think of it. I suppose having worked with Mark Constantine and the team now for 40 years, it is what it is. I've never had to think I'm a woman, that's why I can't do that, or I'm a woman, I'm going to do this. I've just done it.
Yeah.
And I've been given those opportunities, but I am sort of aware that that is not the case everywhere. And sometimes we do have to fight a lot harder. But I think, do you know what? That's part of the pleasure, isn't it? Is making things happen. And if it was easy to make things happen, there's not as much pleasure in that. So you want the pleasure of sort of like, yeah, it was tough. And yes, I went for it, but look what I've done.
Yeah,
and that could just be my mentality. I don't know. But I like the challenge, and I don't want it to come easy.
Yeah.
And so, but elements of it will come easy, elements of it won't.
Yeah.
And, you know, but whatever you do, never, ever have the mentality, oh, I'm a woman, therefore I can't do that, or I'm female, therefore I can't do that. Yes, you can do anything you like.
Yeah, sure.
There's absolutely, you know, fundamentally no difference between us. There's strength differences and obvious ones. But other than that, it doesn't really matter how you identify.
Yeah, sure.
It's your own persona, it's your own will to succeed or not that will let you down.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you just mentioned then, you know, you're a board of 6 of you, or 5 of you now, of course, but, you know, there's 3 women, 3 men. What was it like around the table? You know, was there a difference between the approach between the female founders and the male founders?
There is, but only because we're all quite differently skilled. You know, 2 of us were Librans, so we're very balanced.
Yeah.
2 of them are Cancerians, so they like to wrap everything in cotton wool. You know, actually, I think three now are Cancerians, which makes it sound like one of them changed. But where we lost Liz at the beginning of the year, Carl has sort of replaced her as our founder. Okay. Yeah. Carl has been with us from the early days, 38 years. So he just wasn't there on the first week. But I think we're all humane. We all have a great humanity and a great empathy. So from that point of view, we're all the same. But then on other areas, some of us are more fanciful and some of us are very down to earth. So that can create discussion. It's sort of like, well, yeah, should we just get on and do this rather than like, ooh, do.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, but there's no sort of like, you're not fighting against a male sort of domination or anything. You know, Mark Constantine is the main head character, but he's probably more female than the females in the group. Sure. So, you know, because in a great way, because he can just do, you know, he has a great sort of understanding of how things and fairness, and so we'd never have, there's no misogyny in there. It's all very much diplomatic. We do argue sometimes as family. We make up, and but it makes for a very robust, very entertaining, very, you know, it's a very loving family unit to be in, but it's not without its challenges.
Do you know, it's really, it's interesting you saying this, because it actually really comes across in your brand. You know, you can smell a Lush shop before you even see it. The beautiful smells that come out of the store are wonderful. And then, of course, all those lovely bright colours. And you do feel like you've had a bit of a warm hug when you walk into the store. So that definitely comes across, I think.
Good. And then that's definitely, you know, when we first did Lush, and we were in 29 High Street, which is the first ever Lush store. And Mark and I were in there of the evenings doing stuff. And it was sort of like, right, how can we create theatre? What we wanted to do was create theatre, and we wanted it to be, and we believe it still is, and it still is important to us, it's an oasis. When you come into Lush, you're coming off a noisy, busy high street. I mean, it can be quite noisy and busy in there, and it is colourful, and there's a lot of sensory overload, but it's about picking you up from one space and putting you down in another, the same as our spa treatments. That was how we hinged the spa as well. You come into our spa, we pick you up in one state of mind, put you down in another, much more positive one. And it's all of those. It's all about experience. It's all about theatre. We love to demo things. We want you to try things. We want you to pick it up. We want you to smell it. We want you to sort of come in and just go, oh my word, this is just amazing. You know, don't ever just walk around and just think, oh yeah, okay, and out again. It's not one of those shops. Everybody will want to talk to you. They'll want to tell you a story. They'll want to tell you a story about where have we bought this ingredient from. You know, the peace pioneers that supply our cocoa beans, which we then ship to Holland and have made into cocoa butter. There's so many stories going on behind the raw materials that we're using. Come in and ask about one or two of them. Come in and ask somebody to tell you a story, because there's loads of them and you can learn so much more. It's not just a cosmetic shop. It is, if that's all you let it be. But if you want to come in and have an experience, we're there for you. And the shops smell, because so many of the products are naked. We're not pumping anything out. We're not walking around spraying everything every day. So what you're getting when you come into Lush is a free aromatherapy treatment. You're coming in and you're breathing in all these beautiful essential oils.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Tell me a bit more about the regenerative actions that you're doing then. You mentioned then the Peace Pioneers, you know, in these stories. I mean, that's lovely. I mean, consumers these days, they want more than just a product, don't they? So, you know, what sustainability actions are you guys taking?
Well, in our buying, we have what we call buying hubs, and that's where we're working with farmers directly to grow different raw materials for us. We don't tie them into us. If they can find someone else, or if they make more ingredient than we want to buy, or so, you know, it's about enabling them. We teach permaculture, so within the hubs, so that other farmers can come and learn best practice. We're very much into helping farmers use best practice techniques to enrich the soil, because one of the biggest things about carbon release is where the tilling of the soil is. So it's about, you know, we're trying to look at all the things that will make a difference to leaving the planet lusher than we found it, and then educating farmers in a way that they want to actually do that. And sometimes we support them financially to get them underway or not. So, you know, it's all about regeneration of the land, which is the most important thing. We're taking in our packaging, so that we're taking responsibility for that. We take responsibility for our waste from our manufacturing sites. We ship things rather than fly things the majority of the time. We're looking to turning our fleet of our own trucks over to electric. We work with a lot of electric companies that are using electric vehicles. I'm not going to do us justice really for all the things.
No, it sounds like you're so busy with it.
But it's you look for something and you think, right, how are we going to do that? And it's sort of, how can we improve on what we already do?
Yeah.
How can we make a difference? How can we be that different? But I always say it's like an iceberg. So you've got the product at the top here, and then underneath you've got the way it's manufactured and the care around that. Then you've got how we've bought that raw material. So if we're buying that raw material directly from farmers, they're getting a better price than if a middleman's buying from them, and they're getting a better price. We're getting a better quality ingredient. That means that the product you're using has got a better quality ingredient. It's not going to be full of pesticides, and so we're not filling them full of preservative systems that kill all the microflora on your skin or whatever, because that's the beauty of a naked product. I mean, it is just like it shoots off in all directions of what happens. But, when you're buying a product from us, you're supporting farmers on the ground, you're supporting regeneration. And that's really important to us. And then we've got the charity pot, of course, which 100% of the money, apart from the tax that has to go to the government, goes to grassroots charities. So there we're supporting people with the same sort of passion as us, that whether it's a passion for animal rights, human rights, or the environment, we'll support you.
Did you have any icons when you first started out? I mean, I mentioned Anita Roddick. I mean, she, growing up, actually, she was my absolute, I adored her, way more than Bros or anyone else that were on my wall. Did you have any iconic role models yourself?
I think I've met them.
Yeah.
Since it's sort of like I've met Jeremy Gilley, who started Peace One Day, and he's an absolute amazing superstar. Lamin Daffé, who started the charity Fresh Start Foundation, which is all about schooling in Africa, from Gambia, where he's from. Paul Yeboah, who started the permaculture movement in Ghana and has taught so many farmers. Mark Constantine, though I wouldn't tell him that, but he is amazing. Well, people go, oh, it's Richard Branson. It's Mark Constantine is another one, and I get to work with him and talk to him every day. Yeah, so I've met them. And the other founders that I work with, each in their own right, the amount of attention Helen puts into the formulations of the skincare products especially is just phenomenal. Yes. So, yeah, I've probably met more than when I was in love with the Bay City Rollers. Yeah.
I know, and they're so much more important icons to have, I think, aren't they, as well, especially in the changing world. But, well, I mean, it's been a really tough year. I mean, you must have really been hit quite hard when the high streets all came to a horrible halt over the sort of crux of the pandemic. But I don't really want to dwell too much on that. I think we're all trying to, as much as we can, move forward and get our brains out of it. Yeah. But what about exciting plans on the horizon? Is there anything new coming up? Is there any sort of sneaky previews you can give us?
Well, there's a whole load of product coming out. Okay. We're looking at, and whether it will happen or not, in February, we're planning a relaunch.
Wow. Okay.
No idea what that's going to mean, but it's going to be hugely exciting. But it will involve lots of product. There's lots of products being worked on to sort of make everything that we're doing even more intense. So that's great. We've just bought out the rest of our shares in North America. So that's now come under group. So we have, we've got the North America to work with now, which is very exciting for us. There's always lots of stuff going on. It's never, you go on holiday for 2 weeks, you come back and you think, flipping heck. Yeah. How can you have all of that? I've only been away 2 weeks or a week. And so it's always moving. There's always loads of stuff. We're very pleased to be open again. The hardest things for us as retailers is not having communication with our customers. We're very customer focused, very customer led, and not having them to chat to and give us feedback. As we take feedback online, obviously, but it's just not the same as not being in contact. So I think we're looking forward to getting back out onto the shop floors ourselves. As founders, we go on the shop floors every Christmas and work with different teams and go to shops that maybe don't see as many, head office people as they would like. So we'll start going out and about, and it'll be lovely again to start meeting people.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. Well, I've got to say, Rowena, if ever someone could present a brand for people to get behind, then Lush is definitely it, I'd say. If you're at all a conscious individual, then, and you haven't been into a Lush store, then go and enjoy that experience because, it's absolutely fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time, Rowena. I really appreciate that. And what an amazing insight into into a brand that I think is going to be around for a very, very long time. So thank you very
I
much.
hope so. Lovely, Natalie. Thank you.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
Joining me now is Nikita Mehta, the founder of beauty brand Fable and Mane. Lovely to have you with us, Nikita. Thank you for joining us today. And let's talk a bit now about women in the beauty industry.
Yes.
This particular episode of the radio show is talking about the influences, both positive and negative, of specifically female founders, really, which I think have quite a lot of influence over the market movements. How did you feel coming into this marketplace? I mean, the beauty industry is quite huge. Did it worry you at all? Did you feel the impact of yourself as a female in this environment?
I felt it was very empowering because it was very authentic. I think this journey and the story the brand is of my own and it's very personal. I didn't feel there was enough, especially in the Indian beauty space. You know, you have Korean beauty and Japanese beauty, but I think now it's growing, which is fantastic. So I felt maybe that wasn't equal representation, but that was just from the founding point of view. And obviously the retailers and the beauty market, that it really celebrates women. But then what they were saying, and then also the corporate side, like the people who perhaps own the businesses, which is predominantly male dominated. I think definitely you have to put your foot down and stand up and have your voice heard. And like, I've been in board meetings where I'm the only female, and it's interesting hearing the male perspective or making decisions on what product to launch, when it's like, but have you experienced that problem yourself? You know, yeah. Like, do you know what it's like for a woman to have that? Yeah. Like it's sometimes it's just a different approach. So it's always a fine line with business between, you know, creativity and business decisions. But it's great because I have my brother who we're so different, but we're also very alike. So it kind of balances everything out.
Yeah, so it's good for you to have that support. And what advice would you give to a young woman like yourself who's maybe listening to this and thinking, gosh, I've always wanted to enter into the beauty market with either a brand or a beauty business? Would you have any advice for her?
Yeah, I would say know your why. So before I even started Fable and Mane, I probably spent 18 months just doing research, watching consumers, how they shop in stores, looking online, like price point, finding the best suppliers, going to trade shows. And then once you have a product, it's not enough. Then you need to know, what is the reason for doing this business? Like, can I say it in a sentence? Can I write it down on a napkin, you know, and convey it to someone? And it's usually simple, but know why you're doing something, because I think that's what people will buy into, that emotional connection, rather than like, oh, here's another face cream, you know, or hair oil. So that's super important. And to also just believe in yourself and love yourself, because being an entrepreneur, it's a lot of time alone, and you just have to be your own best friend and champion yourself, you know, and enjoy your company, because it's not, my most fulfilling moments came actually before even selling our first product, which is very interesting, you know, like now it's all great with the success and everything, but the real wins are like your little moments with yourself, like, oh, we just signed off on the brand color, or like just this, you know, the packaging, or like all the little moments when the formula's just right. And so you have to enjoy the journey, but definitely take the risk, because there's nothing like it, like especially as a woman, just being free to make your own decisions and be your own boss, and like it's limitless, you know, infinite possibilities. So I really recommend to do what you enjoy as well, like find your passion.
Have your say, have your say, have your say. Tweet us at Elliott Life and get involved with the show. Put your questions to the experts. Joining me now is Anna Brightman, co-founder of Upcircle Beauty. Thank you for joining us on the show today, Anna. It's lovely to have you here. And I just wanted to start really by talking about Upcircle, the brand, because it's quite a unique brand and its approach. Could you talk to us a bit about the ethos behind it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, firstly, thank you so much for inviting me on. I have been the founder of Upcircle now for 5 years since we started it. We are a skincare brand, and our entire ethos from top to bottom, in every single way, from the logo to the name to the design, to our approach is circularity and bringing the circular economy to the skincare industry. I think the beauty industry as a whole has got a pretty poor reputation when it comes to sustainability. So we wanted to shake things up and take the next step towards a more circular approach. So our core concept is that we infuse byproduct ingredients into every single one of our skincare formulations. We started out with coffee grounds that we collect from cafes and restaurants all over London where we're based, but now we work with more than 10 different byproduct ingredients that we reimagine into skincare ingredients instead.
Gosh, and how does that work? So let's talk about coffee granules. Where do you first of all come up with the idea, and then how do you approach the suppliers that are giving you the recycled grains, really, I suppose, isn't it? Could you talk me through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was my brother and I who started the business together. I think that we, like many people, had out of university gone down a more traditional career path through more than anything fear of, oh my goodness, can I actually start my own business? Is this a good idea? Should I just do what everyone tells me to do and kind of go down a more safe path? So we had done that and, had good careers, but would come home at the end of the day feeling ultimately unfulfilled and like we wanted to do something where we actually felt we were making a genuine difference, weren't just a tiny cog in a big machine, that kind of vibe. Mm-hmm. So kind of waiting for inspiration to strike while still employed in our previous roles. But my brother, in that period, walked into a coffee shop and asked the barista behind the bar what happened to the coffee grounds at the end of the day that they produce, and was really shocked when the guy told him that they were producing so much per day that they had to pay the local council to have those grounds disposed of at landfill sites. And of course, this was just an independent coffee shop. This wasn't the likes of Starbucks or Costa or one of those. And I, as a teenager, my kind of dream job was to be a makeup artist. So I had a keen interest in skincare and cosmetics and that kind of thing. So I knew that coffee had fantastic skincare benefits. And, I'm not trying to claim that we created coffee scrubs. That's definitely not the case. But we started researching what happens to the coffee through the brewing process. Does the quality deplete in any way? How is it changed? And the more we researched, the more it became actually apparent that in terms of skincare benefits, the brewing process actually improved the coffee, the nature of the coffee. So we started with that one coffee shop. We asked them, how would you feel if we came along at the end of each day and took it off you? Yeah. And then we've just grown from there, taking on more and more shops as our brand grows.
Well, that's amazing. So growing up, what was it like for you and your brother? Were you encouraged to sort of, were your parents more kind of the sustainable mindset? Is that where you get that nature from?
I would definitely say that my parents have instilled into us our work ethic. Yeah. My mum is now in her late 60s and just refuses to stop working. She's just go. Even if, she's not working, she'll create work for herself kind of woman. So we've definitely got that grit and determination and that kind of, entrepreneurial try again kind of attitude from our parents. I would say the sustainability side of things is definitely, I would say for my brother, that influence has come from his wife, who he met when he was at university. And I think with each generation that comes, I think our genuine interest in sustainability is only going to become more and more apparent, because really there is no alternative for us at this point, right? The crisis is right in front of us. It's clear for all to see. So it's important to me that I do a job that can make me feel good about that and not guilty about the impact I'm having.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually COP26 is currently underway in Glasgow, and of course all industries across the UK and globally actually are being asked to reframe and look at how they produce goods, how they manufacture things, how they transport it. What do you think the beauty industry can do? I mean, you're obviously doing something really quite significant with the formulas themselves, but on a very small scale, what do you think beauty companies can do?
I think the biggest issue for beauty companies is with regards to packaging. And I have to admit, as a brand founder, that's one of the issues that I find most frustrating, because you build the brand, you build the the look and the formulas, etc. But I'm not a packaging manufacturer, so you have to kind of work with what's out there. And sometimes it does mean that in order to choose X option that might be more sustainable, it can have huge impacts on things like your price point and the audience that you then end up with. I was 22 when I launched Upcircle, and I vowed on day one that I would never sell products that I wouldn't have bought at that age, because I was so fed up with sustainability being some sort of elite privilege that only a few people can actually afford. So packaging is really, really tricky, but there are huge steps that people can make. And for me, if I look at the journey that we've taken over the short 5 years that we've existed, of course, more opportunities can be afforded as you grow and as you have more budget and more infrastructure and more people in place behind the scenes. But there are simple ideas that all brands can put in place. I'll give an example. We don't like to compromise the performance of the product. So we choose to have elements of plastic in our packaging. For example, a dropper for a serum has a little bit of rubber and a little bit of plastic. But essentially, you need that in order for the product to function as you want it to. But we offer an aluminium cap refill option on our website. So you just select a drop down where when you run out of your first serum, for example, at home, you keep that dropper and then you order the second, third, fourth, fifth, etc. with an aluminium cap, and then it's plastic free after the first use. We also, more recently, have done a full packaging return scheme. So we take the same circular approach to our packaging as our formulas. So people can repurchase their products at 20% cheaper on our website, send their empty packaging back to us, free post, we pay for that, and then we refill their exact same packaging and send it back to them. So that's another thing that I would love to see more beauty brands doing.
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously, logistically, that's something that they really have to think about to put in place, but you're proving that it is possible. It's just about having that open-mindedness to it. And to be honest, I often say, actually, the beauty industry has got a huge problem on its hand because, we produce mostly liquids, and we have to get that liquid from where we manufacture it to the hands and the homes of the consumers. So, it is very difficult. And there are, as you mentioned, a number of different options that exist. But ultimately, consumer demand is there for the product, and we need to get it there and we need it performing. So yeah, that's really difficult. Now let's move on a little bit and talk about you as a woman in the beauty industry. Now that's really the focus of this particular episode, is looking at how much of an influence female brand founders have in the beauty industry itself. Now you actually have been recognised as an industry role model. You've been recently listed by Elle as one of the top 9 entrepreneurs changing the beauty landscape for the better. What a wonderful title to be given. I mean, that's amazing. Such a privilege. Yeah. But how did you feel entering this humongous marketplace as a start-out entrepreneur?
Oh, I mean, it's such an interesting one for me specifically. I feel like I've always considered myself quite, a strong, independent woman, not to fall on that classic cliche, but even, I never knew what I wanted to do as my career, and I've always considered myself quite creative. And in the first couple of years out of university, I was doing all sorts of different jobs. But what I found often was that I was ending up in managerial positions where I was managing people, and often those people were teams of largely men. So in property management, for example, I was dealing with painters, decorators, etc. And I felt like I was quite good at that balance of kind of gaining trust, but also respect. And it's something that is incredibly important to me. However, I would be lying if I said that I wasn't extremely intimidated going into actually starting your own business as a female founder is undoubtedly intimidating, but I've learned so much along the way, and the frustrations that I've had with being a co-founder with my brother have really propelled me forwards to making big changes in this space for future female entrepreneurs, because I take a lot of time with mentorship and going into secondary schools and universities to give lectures and careers talks and things like that, because I think it is just so important that more people have the courage to go it alone and try their hand at being their own boss. Why not? It's the best thing in the world, if you ask me. But, you know, given that I've done this alongside my brother, it if anything, reinstills in me the fact that so much more progress needs to be made. So, for example, you know, if someone calls up on the phone and they ask for the CEO, and then I answer, and you can tell instantly that they're like, oh yeah, but what about William? Is he there? And I'm like, what do you mean, what about William? What's wrong with me? So that's always frustrating. I used to manage our warehouse, and you can imagine, you know, that was a lot more progress needs to be made. And International Women's Day is another prime example for me. Every single year, and I'm like, okay, well, this is great, but I have never been a part of an International Women's Day that hasn't been attended and run almost solely by women. And that's not really what this is, you know, we know. Let's get more people.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's progress to be made, but I'm pleased, and it's incredible to get that kind of recognition, of course.
Oh, it's amazing, yeah. And what about the dynamic between you and your brother? I actually just spoke to Rowena Bird from Lush, and obviously there's 6 founders, and it's 3 women and 3 men, and she was commenting quite a lot on the boardroom dynamics, you know, and the differences they bring in. So how does it work with you and your brother? Is there a real sort of masculine, feminine divide in the way you approach things in the business?
I guess in certain ways we do fall on what you might describe as certain stereotypes. For example, he comes from a background in finance, so he is, you know, the economist. He's the one making sure that we're making money, whereas I am definitely the face of and voice of and kind of personality and final say on anything visual, and branding, and often products as well, although the new product development side of things is definitely a 50-50 split. So in that sense, yes, I guess we are slightly falling into gendered roles, but I would also say that that's our greatest strength with regards to the fact that we are, you know, yin and yang. It does make for a powerhouse duo between the two of us, because we never step on each other's toes. We have that agreed roles which are clearly defined, and, you know, HR and people focused stuff is, you know, best left with me, but then ultimately he's like behind the scenes and I'm front of house, I guess is how I would summarize it. But it's clearly defined, which is important. With siblings, oh my goodness, you've got to be careful. Yeah,
I can imagine. I have a husband and wife dynamic, but I can imagine siblings is even worse. So
it's exactly as you might expect.
yeah, brilliant. I mean, I spoke to the British Beauty Council a few weeks back, and Helena Gress, the head of the British Beauty Council, was saying that, you know, actually the beauty industry represents an 80% employment of women. So I really wanted to get your advice on any young woman listening into the show that might be considering a career, maybe as a brand founder or just anywhere within the beauty industry. Do you have any key advice based on your experiences?
Yeah, I would say based on my personal experience, my advice, ironically, would be to not take on board everyone's advice. I think at the start, particularly as a woman and as a young woman, like I was 22, you get told, okay, well, speak to this person, speak to this person, speak to this person. We had our idea, and it was different. It was forward thinking. It was pioneering. We're tackling issues of waste in the beauty industry. Those are 2 completely opposite end of the spectrum sorts of things, and not anything that anyone had done from the same top to bottom extent as us. Particularly, you know, we're talking byproducts here, salvaged, rescued ingredients, and that was really before its time. So the more mentors and investors and people that we spoke to that in theory should, in inverted commas, know better, the more they said, do not do this. This is terrible. I mean, good idea, but don't put it front and center. You can be doing it behind the scenes, but people aren't ready. Everyone's going to turn their nose up at it. And they all advised me against. So to a point, I listened, right? Because I should, right? And so we did slightly mask it in certain ways, what our true USP was. And actually, I regretted that. And so we did a full rebrand 2 years in, which was, of course, very costly. And we undid all of those decisions. And I think actually you have to be bold, you have to be brave. And it's better to have a more passionate but small tribe who are absolutely behind everything that you do, and perhaps those who aren't into it, and that's fine, they're not your target customer, than to be a forgettable brand who's just a bit samey and no one really everyone's indifferent about. So don't take on everyone's advice. You'll be spread too thin and you'll be pulled in a million different directions. Have conviction, be bold, and do what you want to do.
Well, I can tell you now that's amazing advice if ever I've heard it. I mean, actually, you got me thinking there, because the beauty industry, it's an age-old industry, isn't it? It's been around for decades. It's had some brands have had formulas that have been in existence for about 8 decades and unchanged. And actually, the world around us is changing quite rapidly, and quite rightly. The Gen Zers are becoming more aware of the sustainability factor, and they're demanding more from all of their products, not just beauty products, everything, food, transport, absolutely the whole works. Do you think that the beauty industry is a little bit behind this trend? And just listening to you saying, you were really sort of knocked back in the beginning, saying, oh, hide that USP. Actually, you look at where we are today, oh my goodness, it's wonderful, and it always was. But do you think the beauty industry is a bit frightened of change?
I would certainly say that it's quite fickle and it's quite shallow, and it's still an industry that's very trends based. So I get asked all the time to give my comment on trends, and I think, well, why would I do that? Trends are fleeting and they're backward facing, and they are the opposite of sustainability, because they encourage you to try and then change your mind again and look for the next big thing 3 months later. What they also do, and you reminded me of this when you said brands have formulations that haven't changed in 10 years. That's the opposite approach of what we take. We see our products and our brand as constantly evolving. And if you are a truly sustainable brand, then you have to, because take a trend that says, okay, well, vanilla is the latest big ingredient, or whatever it might be. If then every brand in the world jumps on that same ethos very quickly, then there's no way you can secure a sustainable source of that ingredient, because the pressure on it and on the harvests and the growers and the entire supply chain are the opposite of sustainable. So we definitely don't take that approach, and I think that there is a lot of merit in not doing that, basically. But as you mentioned, consumers are now looking for brands with a purpose beyond profit, and they're willing to vote with their money to show their broader values. So there is much greater demand for the ethics, the genuine, not greenwashing ethics of brands to stand for more than just their products, I think. Yeah,
couldn't agree more. Well, I mean, just to end, really, it's been a really tough year for many industries, coming out of the horrible C word and the whole pandemic lockdowns. But obviously your brand has remained strong, because like many brands that were able to sell online, people were at home, weren't they? And they were doing some shopping. But are there any exciting plans for Upcircle that you want to share with us now?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are continuing to innovate. We are still 5 years young, so there's lots more that we've got planned for the future. We're focusing very much on skincare for now, but then we do have plans for kind of oral hygiene and then also cosmetics and hair care. But we've got 5 products set to launch before Christmas, which is really exciting. Those include a night cream and a hand and body wash and a hand and body lotion duo, which we plan to relaunch into the hospitality industry now that that's opening back up again. So yes, continuing to innovate really with regards to the ingredients that we're working with, and continuing to broaden out our range alongside growing our team, which seems like a constant part of what I'm up to at the moment. We never stop hiring, which I love. You get a new wave of passion and enthusiasm and excitement with each person who joins our office. So I love that side of things as well. Also branching into other industries. So we're looking at byproduct flower petals from the wedding venue and floristry industry next. Brilliant. For some bath products. So lots to look forward to. It's really exciting.
Yeah, I suppose your options are endless when you're using byproducts and waste products. You could just look anywhere, can't you, really?
Exactly. Keep your eyes and ears open and look for inspiration and stay curious is what I always say. And you never know what we'll be working with next.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. Could you just let our listeners know where they can go to purchase your products?
Yes, absolutely. So you can go to our website, which is upcirclebeauty.com. All of our socials are at Upcircle Beauty. We are online with lots of retailers like Ocado, Sainsbury's, Holland & Barrett, Feel Unique, Beauty Bay, and you can find us in stores at Sainsbury's and Holland & Barrett as well.
UK Health Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
Joining me now is Trishna Daswani, the founder of Cole Creatives. Thanks ever so much for joining us today. And it's a really exciting and quite a unique brand that you've created. Could we start by you telling us a bit more about Cole Creatives?
Of course, 100%. Thank you so much for having me today, Natalie.
You're welcome.
So I guess the main thing about Cole Creatives is it is very personal to me. The whole journey about the brand, the way that it was created, the way that it was kind of thought about was all very much based on my own personal experiences. I grew up in Hong Kong, and I was not only exposed to a lot of pollution, which made me feel a certain way about the environment because of my own personal chronic battle with asthma, which interestingly enough doesn't exist now that I'm halfway across the world. So definitely was so direct. But it was also about the fact that I really struggled as a young girl. I used to be bullied for the way that I looked. I'd wear teeth, I had glasses, then I had braces, then I just couldn't catch a break. And I just remember my mom teaching me how to use makeup, and it turned into this incredible experience of, making myself feel amazing, just with like a little bit of eyeliner or a little bit of lip gloss.
Yeah.
And that is where the idea for the brand came from. It was really about being able to support people on their makeup journey, empower them along the way, and really create a meaningful experience behind it. Because I know, we should love ourselves the way that we are. And I'm not saying not to. I'm just saying, enhance the bits and do what makes you feel best. Because I could say I love myself all day long in the mirror, but I do feel great when I put eyeliner on, I just feel more me. Yeah. And it's about making that connection with people. But we do it in a little bit of a unique way, of course. Yeah. We create beauty tools. And these beauty tools are designed for everyone to use. In order to kind of describe the shape of the handles, I mean, it's kind of like something that you would be able to grip, kind of fits really easily in your hand. They stand, they don't roll. Some of them bend. Some of our collections have Braille on them, and they come with an audio guide. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, regardless of your motor capacity or your visual capacity, there is a way that you too can use makeup to make yourself look and feel as you wish. And all the brush sales support our workshops, which are free. So those with any issues or difficulties with motor skills, or that are nonverbal perhaps, those that are transitioning gender, and even those going through cancer or alopecia or vitiligo, we offer them one-to-one or group support on a weekly basis, basically teaching them how to use makeup to make themselves be able to feel like themselves. That's the best way I can describe what I do.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to dive into that a little bit more. So you just mentioned there a few groups of people that might really benefit from your products. So, people with, motor disability, so the unique shape of your brushes then, have you researched this? Is this something that you've involved groups of people that maybe have some difficulties and find out what they actually needed from their makeup tools?
Exactly. I mean, the benefit of the workshops is the workshops came first.
Yeah.
And with the workshops, we're exposed to so many different people and so many different groups of people. And I really got to understand, what is difficult about makeup for you? What can we do to make it easier? How can we make this journey more comfortable? But it's not about targeting those people specifically. It's about being able to integrate those people into the community. And I think that's where our key difference is. Yeah. Especially in like the way that I wish I could explain it to people. It's not just about making makeup for that community. It's about including that community in something I can use too.
Absolutely. And, you mentioned, quite a painful journey, it sounds like, for yourself, growing up. I mean, kids can be really very cruel, can't they? But actually, the woman I see sat in front of me now with very little makeup on by the looks of it, you're beautiful. And it just seems crazy that you had to be subjected to that sort of social behaviour, I suppose. And, let's talk about the transgender community and how you're trying to really empower them. And, it's a very similar sort of bullying that they might be exposed to as well. I mean, what's the feedback you get from that community?
I see a lot of different age groups with that community. And let's not forget the workshops are global. So every community accepts trans people very differently. In Asia, it's very different to the way that it is in the UK. In Asia, I tend to see a lot older individuals as well. But equally so in the UK, it's a lot of young people. It's a lot of people that have left home, that are living in care spaces, that are visiting community centers, which we go into and support them in. Yeah. I mean, the people that we see that are transitioning gender or in the process of transitioning gender, there's so many different stages as well. You've got people that are open to taking hormones. You've got people that don't want to take any hormones. You've got people who are, seriously considering surgery. And then you've got under 18s who can't. So makeup sometimes tends to be the only saving grace sometimes. Yeah. It's the only moment or feeling that they get of actually seeing in the mirror the person that they feel to be on the inside. And so it's that journey that's really beautiful to see. And we really do kind of see people multiple times. It's not just a one-time trip. Actually, one of the most memorable in the secure facility, one of the secure facilities anyway. So Katie was one of the women in the secure facilities. And as she was in the secure facility and she was kind of going through a pretty intense journey, she not only was a trans woman in her 40s, but she also was a surviving burn victim with 2 to 3 degree burns. And it was not only a question of making sure that the skin was all right, because it always kind of comes down to that as well. I think people feel like, when you're into makeup, you ignore skin, and that's the biggest myth. A makeup artist often will give you the best facial massage, very short one, but the best to make sure that your skin is prepped and hydrated and protected in the best way possible. And so looking after Katie's skin was actually a much bigger priority for us than was just exclusively feminizing her features. Yep. And we got to visit her multiple times in the secure facility over 1.5 years until she was actually ready to come out to the rest of her male ward.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. And what was that like? Did you?
It was emotional. I mean, There were so many tears, but they were so accepting. They all kind of knew anyway. Yeah. So it was just really wonderful to be a part of that journey.
I was going to say, how wonderful to be a massive part of building that person's confidence up. So they got to the point they were ready to make that reveal, really. That's lovely. Absolutely wonderful. So is your background then as a makeup artist?
It is a little bit of both. I mean, I basically started off, as soon as I decided I wanted to do this, I trained as a makeup artist.
Sure, yeah.
But then I also knew that I needed to have some kind of understanding into skin. Mm-hmm. So I trained as well with regards to dermatology, not with like a extensive degree or anything, but just whatever I could do without being a medic. Yeah. Because I feel like a big part of this is not just exclusively, as I mentioned, understanding, what undertones people have and what features can I paint or recreate. But a lot of it is also about being able to understand skin and skin biology too.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. So do you have any hero products at Cole Creatives?
Yes. I would definitely say, so we don't have a very big range, and I kind of love everything. And I try to do something slightly new and more evolutive with every new range that comes out. So the first collection, which was the Shapes collection, was self-standing and with this signature shape that we patented that was easy to hold. And the next journey on from that was the Flex collection, which still had that same shape and still had that same function of standing, but also bends all the way forwards and backwards. So if you had a tremor, it would absorb the impact.
Amazing.
If you needed to bend it a specific way, you could do that too, to be able to use it. So in order to cater to more individuals. And then the third collection was the beginning of our sort of chopstick style square shape handle, which was an eye-shaped brush. And the reason we created that is because we went back and did more research, and some people can't hold such a big item. They want something smaller and more delicate, but with more beneficial functions like grip, non-rolling. So we created the 8 brush, and then Feast Your Eyes, which was our eye collection in the same 8 brush shape, was basically where we added Braille and a raised number sticker and an audio guide via raised QR code so that those with low vision could also kind of understand what was going on. I would then also like to add that we then added in the Mi-Fan brush, which is actually made out of a rice material. So it's not plastic at all. It's material that acts like plastic, but it's actually fully circular. It's made of rice husk. So I'd say that we have hero signature shapes, but every product or everything that we launch really has so much thought put behind it and functionality really at its core. And we really do use feedback from the consumers to evolve what we do as time goes on.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I know that the listeners of this show, there's going to be so many shouting at the radio now. Where can I find them? So what's the URL? Where can people go and purchase your products?
It is www.colecreatives.com.
Okay, and the Cole and the Creatives is with a K, isn't it?
Both with a K.
With a K, yeah. And it'll all be on the UK Health Radio website as well as a reference. So let's move on then. The other reason I wanted to talk to you today is because, you know, you are really unique in your approach to beauty and you stand out within the beauty industry. And the focus of the show today is on women in the beauty industry and, you know, what actually has been quite a male-dominated industry at the top, at the corporate heads. And it's sometimes been quite difficult for women to crack into and to create a product that really is authentic to their beliefs. So what was your experience in entering into this global giant? How did you find it?
Of course, it's really scary. It's super intimidating. It's such a saturated market. But it was just something that I always wanted to do. And I just really kind of, I guess, went for it. I had really supportive parents who really kind of, you know, were completely encouraging and nurturing about this entire journey. And so for me, it wasn't as scary.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you're doing it, you don't think about it. Like when you just mentioned that sentence now where you talked about it being a giant space.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, oh, yeah, it is. But I never think about it like that. For me, it is such a everyday journey. It's all about, you know, what's today's problem? Or how can we develop something new and be creative? So every day has its own step-by-step journey. And I guess I just take it a day at a time.
Yeah. So what next for Cole Creatives? Is there anything exciting on the horizon for you?
There's something so exciting in just a couple weeks. It is kind of very much looking into the future, and that's all I can say. Wow. But you'll be first to hear about it.
Lovely. Oh, that's great. Okay, right. We'll keep you all posted on what those developments are. Brought to you on UK Health Radio, The Natural Beauty Show. An in-depth look at the beauty issues that affect you.